Today I'm looking at all the Fortnite mythics that were in the game. Some maybe I don't even know about because I only joined Chapter 3 Season 1. So let's check out what I missed.
Fortnite's mythic items have gone from broken to bad to busted and everything in between. You may think this is where the story starts, but it's actually the Infinity Gauntlet. This item was released as part of the Infinity Gauntlet limited time mashup on May 8, 2018. Over 5 years ago. We are all getting old. This game mode had one Infinity Gauntlet spawn randomly into the map, and whoever picked it up was teleported into the sky and transformed into Thanos, acquiring his abilities. You'd have 1000 HP, be able to collect the Infinity Stones, hit the default dance, and of course kill everyone. Now this of course was part of an LTME limited time mode, so I'm actually not going to count it in this video along with all of these other ones that are LTM only. But the first to actually
Wait, how powerful was this mythic? Like, seriously, how powerful was it? A 1000 HP, that's a lot.
Into the core game modes was, of course, in Chapter 1 Season 7, the Infinity Blade. Now, if you don't remember this item, you probably don't have PTSD. It spawned at the pedestal at the top of Polar Peak, and essentially every single player would land and grab it. This was actually where some of the earliest drop maps were ever used to ensure you got there first. It gave you 200 HP and 200 shield and 50 siphon on elimination, plus 1 HP gained every single second. Every swing initially harvested materials, and it had 2 different types of attacks. It could do a launch, which did 20,100 damage, or it could do the swing, aka the Shing Shing.
Oh my no way! Is that in the game? Shing Shing!
Now, the release of this broken item couldn't have come at a worse time, as this was one of the first tournaments ever hosted by Epic Games, the Winter Royale 2018. Naturally, the reactions were as you would expect.
Damn.
Oh my! Oh my! What?
Look at this. You kidding me, Epic?
Thankfully, Epic admitted that they messed up, vaulted it, and this tweet just got shy of 160,000 likes. So obviously, this item was not very well received. After going back to
That is insane, okay? I don't know how powerful the mythic blade was, but okay.
drawing board, 2 seasons later, they released the Batman grapnel gun and the explosive batarang as part of the Batman collaboration in Gotham City. Now, these were significantly less powerful. The Batman's grapnel gun was a grappler that, when released, would give you glider redeploy, meaning that you couldn't just fire yourself up onto players on high ground, nerfing it quite a lot. And the batarang only did 50 damage. It seemed like Epic were going in a good direction with the mythic items, but most players don't remember this because there was mechs in this season.
He's targeting it in!
The next season was the release of Chapter 2, and in Season 1, you may think there was probably no mythics. However, there were actually 3. The Mythic Goldfish, which could randomly appear when fishing with a 1 in a 1 million chance.
Wait, this was a thing in what?
Actually one hit KO any player you hit with it. I didn't even...
One hit? How's that, huh? Bro, I need to do my research about Fortnite a lot more.
Realized that this was actually vaulted in Chapter 3, so it's no longer in the game. There was also 2 Star Wars collaborations, the First Order Blaster Rifle, which despite having infinite ammo was basically useless, and the first iterations of the lightsabers, which was released on May the 4th, and would continue to be put back into the game every year. Now, these mythics were all part of either collaborations or just small little items added to the game for fun. However, the next season in Chapter 2 Season 2 would be where Epic Games really showed their plan for mythic items going forward. There were 6 mythics added this season. Now, these were available at 5 different locations spread throughout the map, making these drop spots significantly more powerful than other POIs. You could drop at the Shark and get Sky's Mythic Assault Rifle, which did 37 body shot damage with a 2 times headshot multiplier, and this is when aim assist went crazy, and get the Sky's Grappler, which was just a grappler with infinite ammo and no cooldown, so you could continually use mobility throughout the entire game. Anytime I play build fight 1v1s and hear this grappler sound, I still get a mini heart attack because of how scary it was to fight a player like this in this season. I also remember a game where I saw a full trio die to Sky the AI, so you know, it wasn't an easy fight by any means. You could land at the agency and kill Midas to get the Midas drum gun, which had 25 damage per shot with a magazine size of 40. Now, you look at the reticule and think maybe this has a massive amount of bloom and it's hard to hit shots, but essentially if your crosshair was anywhere near the player, the bullet magnetism was so strong that it would nearly always hit them, making it extremely easy to hit consecutive shots with this gun. Now, this had a damage per...
I never know how powerful the Midas drum gun is, but I mean, since it's back, I guess I'll test it out and see how it actually how powerful it is.
second of 250, which is the 4th highest damage per second of any mythic. But it was so strong in combination with the really strong aim assist this season that pro keyboard and mouse players like Epic Whale actually switched and learned controller this season just to abuse it. If you went down to the grotto and eliminated Brutus, you would get Brutus's minigun, which was a minigun which had infinite magazine size but required a cooldown if you sprayed it for too long. Now there's pro players like Aqua as a great example who just went up onto high ground and sprayed this on the players all the way down below, and they conditioned the entire lobby to stay away from height because they knew that if they started to crank up, they were getting sprayed down by the minigun. Now the fire rate was what made it so strong, but what made it even more busted is the ammo hadn't even been capped at 500 in competitive yet, resulting in the players on height having 999 mini ammo each.
900!
2,000 ammo to continually spray at the players down below, which meant that anyone that got close to them didn't stand a chance. If you went to either the yacht or later on in the season the box factory, you could get the Meowsicles Pew Pew rifle, which did 44 body shot damage, 88 headshot, which was incredibly good for surge, but it was pretty inaccurate when spraying, so most people didn't really hard focus this. And finally, if you went to the rig, my favorite drop spot of all time, if you ended up eliminating TNTina, you could get TNTina's Kaboombo. This was essentially a mythic version of the Boombo, but it was actually nerfed from its original base version, as the original Boombo does more damage, more structure damage, and you could hold for faster shots. However, this season, combining it with the heavy sniper, you could consistently damage players through walls, which I remember OCE winners of FNCS doing repeatedly. A little bit deeper on into the season, Deadpool's hand cannons were also added to the meta. These spawned at the yacht and were part of the Deadpool collaboration. However, these were a little bit too inaccurate to use, but they could have had some really good utility since every single shot healed 3 HP or shield. But again, it wasn't really worth taking because it didn't have the first shot accuracy. Now, the spray weapons from this season in particular were incredibly powerful, so much so that in Chapter 2 Season 3, the next season, they reduced the headshot multiplier from 2 times down to 1.5. This meant by proxy they'd nerfed some of the mythics. Fortia or Flotilla, who knows how it was actually pronounced, was the spawn location for Ocean, who dropped an Ocean's Burst assault rifle and Ocean's Bottomless Chug Jug. Now, the Burst assault rifle did 39 damage to the body but fired 2 shots that were deadly accurate. Prior to this, the Burst assault rifles were heavily underutilized, mainly for its lack of accuracy and large bloom at distance, but with the change to the burst this season, the spread was much tighter and the burst reduced from 3 shots.
I mean, I know Salone's burst rifle at Chapter 3 Season 2 when the the Zero builds came in and all that. I would say it was a good gun with the scoped in, but this one's a bit different for me.
The 2, making it way more viable, in particularly in this mythic version. The Bottomless Chug Jug was essentially an infinite chug jug that took 15 seconds to pop with a 1-minute cooldown. Interestingly enough, it wasn't actually utilized that much in competitive, despite the fact it being an infinite heal purely because it took 15 seconds to use. Over in the middle of the map, the agency has now been renamed to the Authority, and Midas's drum gun is now nerfed into Jules' drum gun. They removed 1 damage per shot and heavily reduced the fire rate, making it significantly weaker. When you combine this with the reduced headshot multiplier, the Jules drum gun actually ended up not really being that powerful. But you did also get Jules' glider gun, which is essentially the grappler. However, unlike its counterpart, it had glider redeploy, making it a little bit weaker than the previous season. But the main, most overpowered mythic this season was undoubtedly the ones that dropped at Catty Corner. If you eliminate Kit, the boss here, you would get Kit's charged shotgun and the Kit's shockwave launcher. Now, Kit's charged shotgun did a max of 226 damage when fully charged, and Kit's shockwave launcher would use rockets for ammo, and every single one of these would fire a shockwave grenade. This season in particular, it was so powerful because the main form of mobility was crash pads, which didn't send you very far and broke minimal levels of builds. However, shockwave could send you firing through an endgame. Plus, combine the 2 items together, you'd have one player who could fire themselves up very high whilst charging the charged shotgun and drop down and hit massive shots on players' heads that couldn't even predict you. Now, you may think that's all of the mythics that were in this season. However, there was actually one hidden mythic, which was the Mythic Mushroom. It had a 1 in 10,000 chance of spawning and gave 100 shield, and for some reason it was only in this season. This is assumedly just because the lore of Midas and his ability to turn things into gold. Now, the next season you all may remember as Marvel season or Stark season. This is where things became a bit of a problem. There were 14 mythics. 14. Mythics. Now, these were nearly all Marvel themed, which since they were a collaboration item that lasted the entire season, I can only imagine how much money Epic Games made just from Chapter 2 Season 4 alone. Now, up until this point, the loot pools between the pubs and competitive has been basically exactly the same, minor a few items like rocket launchers. But with 14 different types of mythics, this started to become quite a problem. Take the Venom Smash and Grab as an example. This is an item that would grab players through boxes and through walls, pull them straight towards you, and you could immediately pull out your shotgun and shoot them straight after. If you, the player this happened to, there was zero counter to this. Dr. Doom's mystical bomb fired a massive bomb that when exploded created a large pool of fire right next to players, burning all wood builds and continually creating environmental damage. Thor's Mjolnir strike does this, and do I really even need to tell you why this is broken? Oh yes, all of these by the way have infinite ammo but just need time to cool down before they can be used again. Thanks to the community feedback and common sense, they removed nearly all of these from the competitive loot pool outside of Dr. Doom's gauntlets, which were relatively balanced. For a brief period, there was the Shadow Midas's drum gun that was added, which had the exact same stats as Jules' drum gun from Chapter 2 Season 3. Interestingly, it only lasted for one patch, which is one of the shortest of any mythic items out there. In the same patch, there was the broomsticks that were also added, which would return later in Chapter 2 Season 8 and then be totally forgotten about forever. Since the power creep and number of mythic items in the game had ramped up so high over the last few years, mythics started to lose their importance and just felt like another item in the loot pool. Thankfully, in the next season, Chapter 2 Season 5, they toned down not only the strength of these mythic items, but also the number of them in the season. Since the season had a large collaboration with Star Wars and The Mandalorian, there were two different Mandalorian items added to this season: the Amban sniper rifle and the Mandalorian's jetpack. The sniper was a single-shot sniper
I was at
that
this
had
season,
a thermal scope
but
similar to the
I played with a friend on his PlayStation to play this season. I really didn't discover much. It was just really laggy, but still had fun.
thermal scoped AR, but it also had a melee attack on the alternative fire which could actually cancel your fall damage if you used it while falling. Since the Mandalorian carried both of these items, he could actually snipe you out of the sky, not only in pubs but also in competitive. Now the Mandalorian actually had a third mythic item, but you couldn't actually acquire it in this season, which was the E11 blaster rifle. It was programmed into the files but only actually obtainable in Chapter 3 Season 2 and Season 3. And yes, it was just as inaccurate and useless as the previous counterpart a few seasons ago. Up at Stealthy Stronghold, you could kill the Predator AI to get the Predator's cloaking device. While standing still, this would make you almost
That's like the same as the invisible gauntlets that we have.
Invisible for a space of 30 seconds with a 30-second cooldown. However, when you moved, it made you a little bit more visible. And for pretty obvious reasons, this was never added to the competitive loot pool. The community was starting to get pretty frustrated with the fact that every single mythic item was just a collaboration item. But in Chapter 2 Season 6, that all changed. The mythics were now relevant to the season. However, unfortunately, this season was the primal season. This season had the primal shotgun, one of the most busted close-range weapons in Fortnite history, and of course, it had the Spire stat.
I mean, I wasn't in that season, but I mean, in like creative and stuff.
Mythic version of it, where you can see me just jump into a box and 200 to 0-2 people. This season also had a ton of bows, and of course there was
the boom bow, definitely that, or like this one.
One to go along with this, which was not actually in competitive, similar to the Recycler, a weapon that used junk ammo, which was also not in competitive. But hands down, the strangest mythic of all time is the Spire jump boots, which you get by killing one of these Spire assassins in one of the towers around the map. Carry this odd, strange ball all the way to the center, which is very difficult to do, and as soon as you put it in this little monolith here, you'll get these Spire jump boots. These allowed you to take 0 fall damage, and if you triple jump with them, it would actually give you glider redeploy. A cool little side quest, but was almost impossible to do in any tournament. Chapter 2 Season 7 brought a bunch of weird alien stuff, and the mythics were no different, including Zig and Choppy's ray gun. This thing honestly was not that strong, but it was still out of the competitive loot pool, only leaving one mythic in, which was the Sloan's pulse rifle, which was basically exactly the same as the Stark Industries energy rifle from Chapter 2 Season 4. I know you may look at this right now if you're playing in Chapter 4 Season 2 and think, man, this gun's so busted, but the hip fire on this actually was nowhere near as strong as the current pulse rifle, which we'll come back to later on. Once this season had ended, Epic continued the trend of keeping the mythic items relevant to the season in Chapter 2 Season 8, having 3 sideways mythics. These were the sideways minigun, the sideways rifle, and the sideways scythe. These were unique in the fact that they were the first upgradable mythic items. This was done
I did join this season, but I didn't play much because back then, like, I don't know. Like, it wasn't that good. I just joined in, and I think it was like a week after that the new season came in.
Monster key parts around the map, meaning you could go from a grey minigun all the way up to a mythic, assuming you could find enough parts. Interesting enough, some of these items actually came back in Chapter 3 Season 2, however Q parts were not unvaulted, which meant that the mythic rarity was actually impossible to get. This season also had Sloane's Burst Assault Rifle, which rotated all of the way around the map, starting near Dirty Docks and landing down to the southeast near Catty Corner. Interestingly enough, this shot 2 bullets per burst, yet had 21 ammo, meaning the final shot would always fire 1 single bullet. This season also continued the trend of having more collaboration items, this time with the Venom symbiote and the Carnage symbiote, which were very similar to the Smash and Grab from Chapter 2 Season 4, however they also gave you increased movement speed, higher jump, and glider redeploy. There was also a Naruto collaboration where they introduced the Paper Bomb Kunai. This was a small throwable explosive that would stick to walls and on impact would do 35 damage. Not incredibly powerful, but enough to be kept out of the competitive loot pool for its build destruction abilities. With the power of weapons across the board overall decreasing, and the upcoming zero build mode having 250 HP inbound, they clearly needed to ramp up the power of each individual weapon, starting with the Foundation's MK7 assault rifle.
Oh, that gun. Oh, that was the beauty of the gun.
Chapter 3 Season 1 was the start of the spray arc, where all of the most powerful weapons were all heavily spray based. With the shotguns being significantly less powerful, most players in FNCS didn't even run one and just ended up running the MK7 and a Stinger SMG. The mythic rarity of this was the first-person mythic item with a damage per second of 230. This is far from the most busted in terms of damage per second, however its deadly accuracy when aiming down sights was what made this truly broken. It was obtainable by eliminating the Foundation at Sanctuary, and you can actually do this by just ramping up high with a harpoon, hitting the Foundation with that, and knocking him out to full damage. Another collaborative item that was added was the Spider-Man's web shooters, which was obtained from Spider-Man's backpacks spread around the map. This enabled you to traverse swiftly through the air by shooting at a surface and swinging towards it, and you could pull items towards you in a similar manner to the harpoon if you hit them directly. The original base value of this had 80 charges to be able to use, which in a competitive setting is a lot of free mobility, so this was actually nerfed down to 20 uses only in competitive, and then a further nerf down to 10, yet still maintaining the 80 in pubs, a nice split that worked for both sides. There was another incredibly busted mythic this season, which was the Gunner's Stinger SMG. Hilariously, this had more recoil than any of the lower.
That thing's recoil is the most worst. I did try this thing. I think once I just used it for the first time, I was like, nope, I'm out of this. I just dropped that gun. I didn't even.
Despite having higher damage, it was often not used. Another mythic that was added this season was actually the Victory Crown. Yes, apparently this is a mythic item. The real main use of this is to stream snipe big streamers and flex the fact that you've won over 3,000 games as a gold peely. To fit with the lore of Chapter 3 Season 2, Sloane's Burst AR returned. However, this time it was called Sloane's Striker Burst Assault Rifle rather than Sloane's Burst Assault Rifle. Similar to the MK7 from the previous season, this was now a first-person ADS, which made it significantly easier to hit shots than the previous.
Back then, that was my baby gun. Oh yeah.
Previous iteration. The other main mythic this season was the Huntmaster's Saber Thermal Rifle, which interestingly also moved around the map. Towards the end of the season, a new POI, the Collider, ended up going straight to the middle of the map, where both of these mythics actually ended up. The fact that this POI was in the center of the map, and it had 2 mythics, was one of the reasons that 3 of 7's FNCS regions were won by players landing at this drop spot. Once the Collider exploded, or whatever went on in the lore this season, Reality Saplings were one of the first mythic items this season. Now you may say, hey, this is not actually a mythic item, and you are correct. However, these were able to give you 4 different mythic items from their drop. The Hammer Assault Rifle, 2-shot shotgun, Rapid Fire SMG, and Cobra DMR. Once you'd planted the seed, every 24 hours, if you cleared the weeds, it would move up in rarity. And since each tournament may only last 3 hours, naturally these were not included in competitive. Later on in the season, there was a Dragon Ball Z collaboration came in with the Kamehameha.
I have the Kamehameha, the Kamehameha, the Kamehameha.
Pronunciation issues aside, this was a 3-charge item that works very similar to the Iron Man's Unibeam. When activated, the player sits still in the air, and after a short period, the time unleashes a powerful damaging beam, which does 100 damage on impact and continually does 40 damage if you manage to hit the aim repeatedly. You were able to dodge this if you used the Nimbus Cloud, which was also another collaboration item, which worked very similar to the Silver Surfer's board, which launched you high into the sky. The final season of Chapter 3's Chapter 3 Season 4 was a strange one when it came to mythic items. In the loot pool, there was the the Evo Chrome shotgun and the Evo Chrome burst rifle. And the
These
more
two
damage you did with these
insane.
weapons, the more their rarity increased, meaning you could actually get up to Mythic. But here's where things get weird. There's also the Herald's burst rifle, which had lower stats in nearly every way, yet it wasn't in competitive,
Yeah, that was
whereas
really
the better upgradable version was. I assume this is just because there were no Mythic bosses in competitive, meaning you couldn't get the item from that boss. The same thing could be said about the Inquisitor's suppressed SMG as well. Honorable mention to the Howler Claws item, which only lasted for 2 days of the Fortnitemares 2022 event because it would make you invincible while using it. The trend of having no Mythic bosses in the competitive meta continued in Chapter 4 Season 1. The two main Mythics this season, the Ageless Champion's Excalibur rifle and the
that was
Ageless
not the
Champion's
best.
Shockwave Hammer,
The Shockwave
both were not
Hammer was the
included
best.
in the meta. The baseline weapons of these were already relatively powerful, and these were just slightly stronger versions of these. And it wouldn't be a season of Fortnite without some sort of anime collab, and this time was the Deku Smash, which was just very similar to the Kamehameha. Up until this point, the powerful Mythics had been kept out of the competitive loot pool, and from what I could tell, everyone seemed to be happy. The casuals enjoy the more overpowered items that are a bit more fun and have more collaboration side of them, whereas competitive doesn't get ruined by incredibly powerful weapons that don't fit a more balanced meta. It seems like everyone was relatively happy with this, so Epic Games naturally decided to change it. Chapter 4 Season 1 also added reality augments where you could obtain the Mythic Pistol
the
using
Mythic Pistol
Mythic
was
Munitions
insane.
augment. In Chapter 4 Season 2, they added 5 different Mythics to the loot pool. In 3 different locations on the map, you could knock out High Card and get access to High Card's Havoc suppressed AR.
I guess that kind of was alright.
This doesn't really feel like a Mythic item because not many players would really ever take this. The pullout time is extremely slow and it's outclassed in nearly every single way by rifle. However, upon knocking out High Card, you also get the Vault card, which will give you access to the enhanced Havoc shotgun, a shotgun that on release did 250 headshot damage. Thankfully, this was nerfed down to 210. However, this is still the only shotgun in the loot pool that can knock out an opponent from 200 HP in one bullet, making it incredibly powerful. And midway through the game, Loot Island will spawn, and if you capture the flag here, you'll be gifted with the overclocked Pulse Rifle. Now, all 3 of these mythics were in the mid-game, and you couldn't get them immediately off the start, with the main goal creating mid-game objectives for players to fight over and have a less boring mid-game, which I think was very much so achieved. And of course, our last 2 items, you know it's going to be a collaboration, the ODM gear and the Thunder Spears. These were essentially just skinned versions of the Spider-Man's web shears. However, they had an alternative fire that rather than picking up loot from the floor, could just destroy any build you wanted. These were initially removed from the competitive loot pool for very obvious reasons. However, when Epic Games released the new ranked mode this season, they combined all of the loot pools in public matches and competitive matches to be the exact same. Now, there's not much of the season left. However, next season, in Chapter 4 Season 3, it seems like any mythics that will be put into the game will also be put into the competitive loot pool. So let's hope that it's going to be very balanced.
Well guys, hope you guys enjoyed that, me reacting to all mythics. Be sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you guys next time.